Grace sat quietly on the low stool under the mango tree, peeling cassava for dinner. Her hands moved quickly, but her mind was far away. She was 19, yet her life felt like it belonged to someone much older, someone who had known too much pain. After her mother died when she was just 9, everything about her home changed. Her father, Mr. Collins, once a warm, playful man, became quiet. He stopped laughing. He stopped noticing things. A year later, he remarried. Her new stepmother, Evelyn, was a woman of fine clothes and harsh words. She never raised her voice in public, but at home, her whispers cut deeper than a slap. From the moment she moved into the house, Evelyn made it clear Grace was not welcome. Why is she still living here? Evelyn would say behind closed doors. She's grown. A woman. Let her marry and leave. At first, Mr. Collins resisted. She's still my daughter, he would say. But Evelyn never stopped. She waited. She watched. She used more tricks. Served Grace lasted meals. Sent her on long errands while her children rested. She complained about her presence to visitors, slowly painting the image of a stubborn, ungrateful girl. The house that once held laughter now felt cold. Then came Daniel. He first appeared at the village well, worn trousers, a faded shirt, and a gentle voice. He helped Grace lift her bucket, then walked away. The next time she saw him, he was buying tomatoes at Mama Toulou's shop. He smiled again. But it wasn't Grace Daniel had come for, not directly. He went to Mr. Collins and introduced himself as a market worker looking for a wife. He said he wanted a quiet girl, a respectful girl, not one who would chase city life. That was all Evelyn needed to hear. That evening, she sat by Mr. Collins. God has answered our prayers, she said. A man has come. He's not rich, but he's hard-working. Let Grace go and start her life. Mr. Collins hesitated. He looked at his daughter through the window, kneeling, sweeping the compound. He swallowed hard. But she doesn't even know him. She will adjust, Evelyn said sharply. Let her not rot in this house. I want peace. And just like that, the decision was made, without Grace's consent, without her joy. The next morning, Mr. Collins called her. My daughter, he began, voice trembling. You are of age. A suitor has come. His name is Daniel. He wants you. Grace's eyes widened. But Papa, I've never spoken to him. What about my plans? I want you to learn tailoring. Enough. Evelyn cut in. Do you want to disgrace us? Must we beg you to marry? Grace looked at her father. He looked away. She knew then. She was alone. Grace's wedding was done secretly. No celebration. No music. No new clothes. Evelyn didn't even allow a full gathering. She said they were saving money. Don't expect a big party, she told Grace. We are not marrying a prince. Daniel wore a clean but old shirt and came with the elders. The bride price was small, and even that, Evelyn received with a stiff face. After the short church service, Grace carried her small Ghana Musco bag. No one hugged her. No one cried for her departure. She looked back once, hoping her father would say something, anything. But Mr. Collins stood at the gate, silent, ashamed. Daniel led her away. Their new home was in a different village, quiet, dry, and dusty. They lived in a one-room apartment near the edge of a farmland. The bed was low. The floor was rough. The kitchen was a small wooden shed at the back. But Daniel was kind. He always said please and thank you. He never shouted. He never hit. He gave her enough money to cook, and sometimes brought back fish or plantain on his way home. Still, something didn't sit right. Grace noticed his hands clean, no blisters. His fingernails were neat. His shirts, though simple, were freshly washed and neatly ironed. The locals said he worked at the market, pushing wheelbarrows. But how could a man who carried loads all day come home without a speck of dirt? One evening, he left without telling her where he was going. Grace followed from a distance. He boarded a private car and stopped at a tall building in the city. The sign at the gate read, DK Group of Companies. Grace's mouth fell open. 2 security men rushed forward and bowed as they opened the door for him. Welcome, sir. What was going on? Grace didn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring into the darkness, her heart beating fast. Her mind replayed everything she had seen. The tall glass building, the men in suits, the security guards calling Daniel sir. It didn't make sense. Her husband, the man who walked barefoot around the village, who had roasted yam with palm oil, who fetched water with her every morning, was a rich man. When he walked into the room later that night, she was still sitting there, her wrapper loosely tied around her waist. Daniel paused. You're awake. Grace nodded, her voice low. Where did you go? He said nothing at first. He took off his shirt, folded it, then sat beside her. After a long silence, he turned toward her. I know what you saw, he said gently. She looked at him. searching his face for lies. I saw the building, Daniel. I saw the car. I heard them call you sir. Are you not the same man they said pushes wheelbarrows at the market? Daniel looked away, his face suddenly serious. I am, but I'm also not. What does that mean? He took a deep breath. Grace was breathing hard now. So you came to my village, dressed like a laborer, and watched my father give me away like a burden. He stood too. I saw the way your stepmother treated you. I saw how your father kept quiet. I saw how you were forced to marry a man you didn't know. And still, you respected me. You served me food with a smile. You prayed for me at night. You didn't know who I was, but you treated me like a human being. That's what I was looking for. Tears filled her eyes. So I was a test to you. He stepped closer. No, you were a blessing. They stood in silence, eyes locked, pain hanging in the air like fog. He reached for her hands. Grace, I didn't expect to fall in love, but I did. You showed me the meaning of humility, of true beauty, of what a wife should be. Her lips trembled. I suffered. I cried. I felt rejected. I cooked with firewood and slept on a mat. I was treated like nothing. And all this time, you could afford more. He nodded. Yes, but if I had shown you everything from the start, would you have trusted my love? Her anger began to soften. His eyes looked honest. His voice didn't shake. She lowered her head and whispered, I don't even know who I married anymore. You married the same man, he said. Only now, you're seeing all of me. He gently pulled her into his arms. At first, she didn't move. Then slowly, she let herself fall into his chest. I don't know if I should forgive you, she whispered. He held her tighter. Then let me spend the rest of my life earning it. 1 week later, Daniel made a call. 2 black SUVs arrived at their village house. He packed Grace's few belongings, her wrapper, her old kettle, her wooden spoon, and helped her into the car. They drove for hours, through red dusty roads and city streets. Grace didn't know where they were going. She didn't ask. Her heart was still learning to believe everything. When the car finally stopped, she looked out the window and gasped. Before her stood a white mansion with glass windows and flower pots at every corner. The compound had neatly trimmed grass, a water fountain, and a row of gardeners working silently. Where are we? She asked, wide-eyed. Daniel smiled. Home. He opened the door and helped her out. His staff stood in a line, waiting. Welcome, madame, they all said in unison. Grace turned slowly. Everything felt like a dream. She wasn't dressed for this. She was still wearing her simple village skirt and rubber slippers. A woman approached. Daniel's house manager. We've prepared her room, sir. No, Daniel corrected. She's not a guest. She's my wife. Take her to our room. That night, Grace stood before a large mirror in their bedroom, staring at herself. Her wrapper looked out of place against the silk, curtains and gold-plated furniture. Daniel walked in and placed a box in front of her. Open it. She did. Inside were new dresses, shoes, perfumes and jewelry. She turned to him with tears in her eyes. Is this my life now? No, he said, holding her face. This is our life now. The next morning, they drove to her village. This time, Grace wasn't carrying a Ghana Musco bag. She stepped out of the SUV in a gold gown, heels clicking against the earth. Her hair was styled in soft curls, and her face glowed like morning light. Children ran to the roadside. Villagers whispered. Some dropped their buckets and stared. Her stepmother, Evelyn, came out in a wrapper, tying it tighter in shame. Grace stood tall and smiled. Good afternoon, Ma. Evelyn couldn't speak. Her lips trembled. She swallowed her words. Daniel greeted Mr. Collins respectfully and handed him a thick envelope. Thank you, sir. You gave me a treasure. Collins opened it. Inside were bundles of cash, land documents, and a letter stating Grace's full ownership of a house in the city. I failed her, Mr. Collins whispered. I didn't protect my own blood. Grace looked into his eyes, gently touched his hand, and said, But you're still my father, and I forgive you. Evelyn turned and walked back inside, her face burning with regret. Daniel smiled. Let's bless this village. That day, he gave bags of rice, cartons of noodles, school supplies, and money to the elders. He promised to build a borehole and sponsor 5 children through school. By the time they drove off, the village danced and sang, not because of the money, but because of Grace. The girl they once ignored had returned with glory in her steps. In the months that followed, Grace began her foundation, the Humble Heart Initiative. She started small, rented a hall, bought 10 sewing machines and hired women to teach. Every week, she went there herself. She sat with the girls, shared her story. I was once like you, she would say. No voice, no money, no future. But God wrote a new story for me, and he can write yours too. She trained orphans, helped widows, paid hospital bills quietly, never posted on social media, never wore flashy makeup. She stayed simple, even as her wealth grew. One day, a young girl named Ruth walked up to her and said, "Ma, I want to be like you." Grace smiled. Then never look down on yourself. Even broken ground can grow good seed. At night, Daniel would come home tired, and Grace would wait with warm soup and a kiss. Their love was quiet, gentle, real. They would sit outside on their balcony, watching the stars. One night, Grace said, "If you hadn't come to that village pretending to be poor, maybe I'd still be peeling cassava somewhere." Daniel laughed. "And if your stepmother hadn't pushed you out, maybe you wouldn't have found your crown." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Life is funny." He nodded. "Pain has a purpose, even when we don't see it at first." Grace's heart was full. She had suffered. She had been rejected. But now she stood tall, not because of wealth, but because she had survived and still chose to love. And whenever anyone asked her how she became the woman she was, she would say, with a soft smile, "I married a man in rags, but I found a king in his heart."